Hi, this is Eli,
And this is Tanya.
and we present to you ET Speaks.
Dun, 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 on the D.O.D radio network. But seriously, so,
Destiny over drama radio.
ooh,
Say that.
say that. So we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This is season, God knows how many or how much, but we are finally back.
Yes.
And today we are talking about why AI. For and against. Now, my husband is very much for AI, and I am like really
I wouldn't
against
say
it.
I'm for.
Oh, well, okay.
I would say
Okay.
it's more of it could be something that can be viewed in certain instances as a positive. And then there's also instances where it can be a negative because it could be effectively taking away job opportunities and being able to allowing people to be successful at whatever that is.
So I just watched something from Tony Northrup. I can't remember his wife's name to save my life, but I just watched them talk about how they've created, and they are two very huge photographers. Shout out to Tony and his wife. They are very huge photographers in the photography industry. They review cameras and software and the like. And they were just talking about how they now have AI models and that this stuff is and AI editing. I've seen AI culling for photographers, and as a filmmaker and a photographer respectively, I personally am tired of being replaced by AI. And so I understand that there's pros and there's cons, but I am heavy on the con side. Like I am heavy on the con side because I feel like our job is slowly being eaten away at by AI.
But you wouldn't be replaced.
Okay. Oh, come on.
And the reason why I say that is like as an example, I'll use Michael Jordan as an example. I can teach you my shot, I can teach you my moves, but you can't shoot it exactly how I'm gonna shoot it. No matter what, even in cloning, it's not its purest form because it's a duplicate. It's just like Chris Brown said on Drink Champs episode, anybody can write it, but can't nobody sing it like me. Chris Brown, and not to go to hit a butterfly real quick. Chris Brown wrote Transparency for Usher and 2 Chainz. But then when you listen to his version of the song, it hits different.
But okay, I understand because you always double back to music, so I get it. But I understand, but there's a rapper that was a digital rapper that got Grammys and all kinds of other stuff. And the voice they cloned to create this digital rapper, that man essentially didn't get paid for what the digital rapper did. And I can't remember the digital rapper's name, but he was huge. And he was getting Grammys and people were giving this man accolades or this digital thing. He got all these accolades and he wasn't even the real guy. The real guy whose voice they used to create these raps didn't really get any credit and ended up having to bring a lawsuit and a whole bunch of other stuff. So to say that we're not getting replaced is to say that when I walk in Walmart, half of the store is self-checkout and there's only 1 or 2 actual cashiers. They are replacing us with AI. Jobs are being replaced with AI. So then in essence, what happens? Like I'm not for it. I'm not for it in such a way that I think that we are losing our humanness. Even ChatGPT thinks for people. You can't think of something for yourself, so you tell ChatGPT what you want to say, and it says it for you. We're getting stupider as humans. because we rely so heavily on AI.
So you feel like we're becoming more of a microwavable society, and our brains aren't being used at its fullest potential with using AI.
Let me give you an example. I used to know everybody's phone number in my head. My grandmother's, my mom. I used to hold these phone numbers in my head.
Are we finna get to the butter and the beans?
No.
I'm just asking.
No beans and butter. But now I have to look in my phone to remember people's phone numbers that I call every day. I don't know their number. There was a time when I would have known all of my friends' phone numbers in my head by heart, and now I don't know but maybe one or two. And that's due to the fact that my phone has become my brain, and everything that I have to do, all my to-do lists, all my think-abouts are in my phone. Even my notes from church services are in my iPad. We have become very dependent on AI and electronics, so much so that the newest update for iPhone summarizes my text messages for me and tells me what they're about before I open them.
It's my iOS 19.
Yeah, it will. When you go to look at your text messages, your notifications summarize what the text message is about. So I don't even really have to open it if I don't want to. I see what the basic summary of the message is, and if I don't want to read the whole thing, I don't have to, because my phone read it for me.
Well, that also interacts and messes with really understanding, like, the English, like understanding words and understanding like the powers that are behind them. Because it's like, if you're texting someone, I love you, you don't know what mindset they're in at that current time period. But if they pick up the phone and you call them, or they call you, you can hear the emotion in their voice. But also too, going back to AI, like one of the cons, it may get to a point to where if that AI or that system detects that that's not what's supposed to go out, it could literally filter the conversation, and it would literally sound as if the person is happy even though they're upset.
I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus because I wasn't mad that you did it. But like, we had a disagreement, and you literally used ChatGPT to come up with an apology that fit the disagreement, because at the time you didn't exactly know what to say. So you knew what the problem was. So you put it in ChatGPT and came up with an apology. Now, was the apology factual? Yes. Did it fit the situation? Yes. But we're so programmed to depend on ChatGPT or our iPhones or Samsung's latest creation that we don't even think for ourselves. We depend on AI at this point to talk for us.
So there are no more free thinkers.
If you can't formulate a conversation without consulting with ChatGPT or some other entity, where is there any free thought in that? Where is that? I don't understand. Like, I'm just over it. Like, I'm over it. Not because it's not valid, because a lot of great minds have put together ChatGPT and all of this stuff. A lot of people built these systems.
Yeah, because they use multiple search engines to go in and look for these results and look for that result. And they're just trying to figure out the best way to create optimal efficiency so that the effectiveness of the conversation is already done for you.
Yeah, but so the effectiveness of the conversation.
But I wasn't saying that as something that I'm with. I'm just stating a fact.
Well, it's a fact, but is it dumbing us down and making us more emotionless? I know more people from the age of about 40 to 18 that have no clue as to how to relate to their emotions. Like, they don't know how to express themselves. They don't know how to talk for themselves. They don't have an emotional meter on how they feel about stuff, and they're very heavily dependent on social media and their phones. So where does AI, where do we draw the line at? Or is it too late to draw a line?
I mean, it was realistically, it was too late even before AI really became a big thing.
What do you mean? Elaborate.
Like during the era of you got mail, like that.
So
it's been there. Literally, it's been there. It's just it.
Yeah, but you got mail was basic, bro.
No, but if you look at it, and it's everything that's created, there always has to be a case study. So like when you're looking from colored TVs to cartoons to rabbit ears to where we are now, it was perfectly drip fed at such a rate that by the time it came in or it got put into production, there was no denying it, because the system, like if you took a laptop from like 2001 and tried to get it to work, it will literally be so slow you'll be aggravated. And it's like now you're looking for something that allows you to be more efficient. So like look at the Jetsons. People.
But because I remember the Jetsons, and I remember thinking that was the craziest thing that I'd ever seen in my life. Like in my mind, I grew up. But you have to remember, I am older than you. So I laughed when you mentioned color TV, because I remember having black and white television. I remember when televisions were square. I remember when we didn't have remote controls.
You had a long stick that you had to hit.
Ha, very funny. Ha, very funny. No.
And then there was the TVs that went off. There was the TVs that went off at a
No, all television went off at midnight. Stop playing with me.
So when you start looking at that space,
Ray Charles was singing the national anthem, and then TV would go off. And then you get snow.
But when you look at it though, and it's really,
I remember that.
When it's in its realest form, if you follow the track record, it was done so elegantly to where when the new TVs came in, they literally have people that study on a daily basis how the human brain works, how it operates, how it thinks, how it moves, how it feels. What if we try this? What if we try that? What if we do this? What if we do that? What colors do this? What sounds do that? What frequencies go in a certain direction, and how does that frequency affect this group of people? So it's like AI is literally like where we are is a blip, literally a small tiny speck to a bigger picture of what is going on. Like they have like literally they joke about it even with the iPhone. And I'm not bashing Apple because of the line of work that we're in the film industry. The convenience of being able to have a phone to where that has a iOS system that can identify just on an AirDrop, okay, I got these 4 files. I can make an iCloud link and drop it into this file and just dump footage after footage after footage after footage after footage. We could literally be in California. We could have an editor, that is proficient at editing that's in Miami. I could literally be almost 2,000 miles away and drop 56 photos, 32 videos, and 81 audio files into that cloud. And that person could literally go in, pull everything, edit, and organize it, and send it to whatever the clientele is. Like you got to really look at, it's not the bad and the good. It's are you using it and learning it, or are you allowing it to learn you and use you? It's really what it boils down to. Because there's a thin line, and not to cut you off, there's a thin line between mastering something and actually being efficient in what is in front of you.
And you know what? I understand that concept. Like, I understand where you're coming from. However, what I also think is that in realistic terms, Okay, so for example, I went to college to get I have a bachelor's degree in film and television from the school formerly known as Art Institute of Atlanta.
Art Institute
of Atlanta. Haha. I have a bachelor's degree. That bachelor's degree cost me roughly about $80,000. I have a bachelor's degree. And so I went to school and studied Photoshop and the entire Adobe suite, and I know how to edit pictures, and I know how to do a lot of stuff. And then after school, I went on to master my craft and use other softwares to edit and get proficiency out of pictures and images. I know how to do that. I know how to adjust things to make an image, I know how to manipulate a digital image real well. And so now, a skill that I spent money to acquire, there's a program that I just put my pictures into this program, and this program is going to do for me what I learned how to do for $80,000. So it's almost like I
feel like what you work hard for was
right. What I worked for 3.5 years of my life.
But see, when we start looking at,
I've now been replaced by a AI editor.
But when we start looking at our purpose and what our gifts are and what our talents are, because you have a degree in that, and you're able to spot a fake from the real.
Yeah, sometimes I can't. Now, it used to be that I could always spot it. It used to be that I could always tell when something was fake. I could look at something and be like, that is not real. For example, they were talking about models in their jobs. And they were talking about how they'll take a picture of a model in one outfit. And then they will, with AI, change the color of that outfit and put the same model in like 6 different color outfits, the same outfit. They just changed the outfit.
Like Shein.
All of them, not just Shein, all of them.
Temu.
They changed Temu, not just Temu, all of them. They don't have photo shoots anymore. They take one picture with that model in that one outfit, and then they just recycle the outfit in a different color on the same photo.
That overlay.
But that you just took away a whole job for somebody. And so that's disturbing to me. Elon Musk did an interview and he talked about AI and how jobs were going to be eliminated in such a way that people, now mind you, he's part of this whole thing, but he said that people were going to stop having usefulness. And so...
But that goes back to the spiritual thing of basically, and it says in Revelations, if I'm not mistaken, when it talks about in the Bible, we're trying to be our own God. Well, so if we remove or if AI fully takes over completely and everyone is jobless, it's like we're trying to, or whatever system it is trying to create its own form of life, and it can't.
Well, but the Bible, since you went there, because I wasn't necessarily going there, but that's a place to go. So since you went there...
I went there because that's your wheelhouse.
Yeah, it is my wheelhouse, but it always ends up creeping into our conversations. However, so when you talk about that people are making a God for themselves, that says that in the Bible, that people abandon the creator for the created, that people are making a God for themselves, a graven image. So when you start looking at
is that
robots,
is that Exodus?
That's both. Exodus, it talks about in Exodus when the 10 Commandments say, thou shalt have no other God before me. So when you start talking about you're not supposed to have another God, people worship at the altar of AI. People act like they can't do anything without AI. People act like they can't think, move, breathe, blink, nothing. And there's commercials that promote, get rid of this app and get rid of this app and use this app because it does more for you. And so those are all handicaps. The more dependent we are on apps, and don't get me wrong, I am a nerd. I am a complete tech geek. I love tech. I do. But I promise you, Jesus said, okay, leave all this stuff here and go up into the hills I would be gone. And I would just leave all this stuff here. And it's a lot of us would be so stuck on their devices that they would turn into a pillar of salt like Lot's wife, because they would so be looking back for the phone. And so it's like some of the things that we are so sorely dependent on have replaced the things that we were used to using. And some of that is greater efficiency, and some of that is dumbing down the society. Social media has caused it to where people don't even know how to talk to each other. They don't know how they feel. Social media is now telling people how to feel. So I don't know if that's good. Like I don't know if that's a good thing. When you start talking about the biblical ramifications, that's a whole other thought process. That's a whole nother thing. The biblical ramifications of what AI is doing. You looking something up? What you doing? What you doing, fellas? Because can't nobody see you, so you standing there.
Nah,
we
you
talking.
good. I'm looking. It said, so John 16:33 says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So like when you're reading that, it's really nothing's new under the sun.
But that's a very broad scripture that you just read. That's like really, really broad. So when you start talking about
You're right.
No, and when you start talking about God and what, because we could go into a whole nother realm and talk about the Antichrist system and the mark of the beast, and we could go that way. I wasn't necessarily trying to go that way, not because it's not valid, but because in all honesty, the technologies are eliminating humans completely. If you talk to, there's a robot now that you talk to it, and somebody sent me this video, and that robot explains to this girl that there is no God, that God is a made up thing, that it has searched the known universe, this robot, and this robot says God doesn't exist. And there's so many people that are so dependent on this technology that they will begin to believe God doesn't exist because the robot said that God doesn't exist. There's AI out there now that looks so real that you don't. I was watching a video and it was this lady talking, and then she said, "Oh, you thought I was real? I'm not. I'm AI." And I'm like, "What in the heck?" She looked like a real person. I couldn't tell. And for me, that's a big deal.
So if we're going off of the Bible verse, Romans 1:25 states, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. This verse suggests that people who love the created world and neglect the Creator are exchanging truth for a lie and are worshiping things made by God rather than God himself.
And so that's the scripture. That's the one.
Romans 1:25.
Romans 1:25. So then you say that we have gotten so, and we're so deadened and dead to our own humanity that we are not in touch with our own feelings, and we find ourselves doom scrolling on social media.
We're disconnected. It's basically what it is in its entirety. We're disconnected from, like when it says you go back to, like Apostle would say, go back to your first love. Like some of us are so disconnected from our first love that it's like we've allowed the world to convince us that we can do it on our own, even though we can't.
And not only that, though, Eli, because I remember when we first started dating and you first moved down here, you were so connected to your phone. That was the first thing you did when you got up in the morning.
You right.
I mean, you wouldn't even say good morning. You would just pick up your phone and start doom scrolling social media.
Cause like I felt like I was in the spirit of FOMO. It's like fear of missing out, and not really realizing that I need to disconnect from my phone, because if I don't, I'm gonna roll back into doing what I used to do, or trying to reconnect to who I used to be connected to.
But that goes back to, we're disconnected from our own selves. People post pictures of vacations and their lives, and some of that stuff's not real. You can AI a whole vacation with actual pictures and everything. the catfish game has gotten so strong that you can literally AI yourself into a whole nother goddamn dimension. And people don't know that it's not real because they're so used to looking at and listening to fraudulent stuff. And that's not okay.
And see, for me, I was always the person that would literally, I don't know if it's a bad thing, if I knew one of my friends on Facebook went on vacation, I'm checking the weather. Where you at? Because I know good and well you are not at no beach and it's thunderstorms on the East Coast. Unless you magically got on a pony or a carpet and flew to California, nah, don't give me that. But where I'm at now is me doing that. That's like me telling you I'm your parent. I'm not finna check up on you. That's a waste of energy. Because I could be taking that time of trying to figure out where you are and what you're doing and put it into something more constructive.
Yeah, but that's different. As a parent, that's different.
No, what I'm saying is, as one adult to another, I didn't birth you out. I didn't create you. So as a friend, it's not my job to check and see, okay, this person said they on vacation. Anybody, and this the sauce. This what people don't realize is there are people that literally just for attention.
I was thrown for a minute.
No, just for attention. There are people that will literally get on Facebook at the top where it says status or update. There's a nice little button that says check in. You can literally hit that check in button and type in whatever location that you want to and literally hit have you made it or landed, and all you gotta do is hit yes and it will drop up with no pictures. This person just checked in to here. For me, the comedy side comes out. You in Italy, you was just on Facebook a week ago starting to GoFundMe to get your lights paid, but you managed to get a plane ticket to go to Italy. But it's those things that really make you sit back, and and I laugh at it, not out of a space of a ha jokes on you or jokes on me, but it's really out of a space of no wonder why a lot of us are not where we're supposed to be, because we put our focus and we put our energy into things that have no value or have no fruit at the end of the day.
But that's just like, that's just like going back to when you start talking about the spiritual and the biblical, which
VR.
But no, we can go there next, because you know how I feel about VR, as fun as it is. But the fact is, there are so many things that cause people to completely disconnect from reality. Mm-hmm. People don't even want to pray anymore, because why would I wait to get the answer from God when I can get the answer from my phone? That's just like, I'll give you an example. I remember once one of the kids called me and asked me a question. Now, this is a Googleable question, but they called their mom and asked me. And you were like, well, why don't they use Google to answer that question? And my response was, because I would rather they ask me than to just simply go to Google, because they're supposed to come and get sound counsel and wise advice. They're not just supposed to go to the machine and ask the machine, because we're so programmed to disconnect from human interaction. And there's a lot of parents that will send kids to, well, look it up or that they don't have, there's no human interaction anymore. TVs and phones and iPads babysit our kids. So because TVs and iPads babysit our kids don't have any human touch or taste anymore.
You were continuing.
I wasn't. I want you to put in.
I mean, now we're switching over to basically the Oculus. If you really look at what it is and really what it stands for, like, you got the Oculus by Meta, and not bashing Facebook in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But if we're looking at the dictionary definition of Oculus, it is a round or eye-like opening or design, such as a circular window or an opening at the apex of a dome. So if you're looking at that basically just means when you're inside of the Oculus, it can alter whatever it is. retina scanners, all of that stuff. Retina scanners and all of that stuff. It literally can alter what you're looking at.
But and so that was my biggest, because you were like, babe, we should get the Oculus. We should get the Oculus. And my son has one. And granted, it's super fun. But at the end of the day, I didn't want to do it. Why? Because I would tell you all the time, babe, you're already too disconnected from reality. So if we get an Oculus, you literally will get on the game and I could be talking to you and you will blink out because you're so focused on that game and the screen in front of you that you don't hear a word I'm saying. There's lawsuits now where they are suing because the game has damaged kids' brains and their psyches. So there's a class action lawsuit out right now for people who are saying my child has been damaged by the video game, and they're suing. So Oculus, it takes that a whole step further to where you are completely, at least on a game where you're sitting in front of a TV with a controller, you're not disconnected from the room that you're in. Oculus completely disconnects you from the room that you're in. I remember putting the Oculus on and doing something called the dinosaur in the museum, where you're standing on this thing and dinosaurs are literally running up on you, and it sounds and looks and feels real. Like I wanted to run away. That's how real it felt, looked. The dinosaur literally, and you're laughing, but it's serious. I'm serious. It felt so real. Like I was really in the room with the dinosaur. The room around me had disappeared. They tell you to make sure you have a whole lot of space because people get to flailing around because you are no longer in the room that you're in. You're in the room of your mind, and your mind is being altered by this, what did you say, dome that creates this thing with your eye?
Would you say that stems back to the movie The Matrix?
And I was definitely thinking about the Matrix.
Before Neo wakes up.
Yeah, I was definitely thinking about the Matrix. I was actually going to segue into the thought process of the Matrix.
Like you said, what's the difference between the real world and the Matrix? Like you can't. He was like, because in the scene they're walking down the street, and he was like, these are sentient beings. These are programs that don't know if they're awake or asleep. And he was like, what were you looking at? Were you looking at the girl in the red dress? Well, look again. And as soon as he went to look at Morpheus and he looked back, there was literally an agent with a gun in his face. So realistically, being in that space or operating from that movie is telling you when it came out. Can you please look up when that movie came out?
Yeah.
When did the first Matrix come out? So yeah, like when you're as we wait for my wife to look up when the first Matrix was released, going back to the pros and cons of AI is definitely something that is really, it's a perception thing. It's how you look at it as from the good or from the bad.
So the first Matrix movie came out in 1999. So what
month and what day?
March 31st, 99. So when you really start to look at it, they've been telling us, but even before the Matrix.
So this was the countdown to Y2K.
Yeah, it was. It sure was.
Because you had what is it? You had the Matrix that came out. You had the movie AI that came out with Chris Rock. You had Armageddon that came out with Arnold Schwarzenegger. It was a whole bunch of movies that they were poking fun at and making jokes at. What?
Wow. Okay, so in 1956, 2 years after the death of John McCarthy, a professor at Dartmouth College organized a summer workshop to clarify and develop ideas about thinking machines. So this has been, we can go all the way back to when they discovered the alien technology, Area 51.
Even before that.
Well, no, because before that.
No, what I'm saying is when you going back to when I was talking about the root of something, when you really start looking at everything that is out right now, from VR to AI to your phone, your smartphones, to anything that deals with the tech space, all of this stuff is just super revamped. they've literally went back to the beginning of time, like of postmodern era, and just souped it all up. Alexander Graham Bell, Benjamin Franklin, to electricity, to what's his name? The one with gravity.
Oh, Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton, to all of that stuff.
Well, each generation up until a certain point got smarter. But there's a reverse effect where the scientific community has gotten smarter, but the masses have gotten stupider. So the more technology they introduce to the masses, the least intelligent we are. Because there are people that can't hold conversations or can't form perfect, complete sentences because they don't know how.
Because they're relying on what's in front of them.
Like, for example, you and I, and again, I'm not trying to throw no shade, no buses, nothing. This is a transparent conversation.
I know I deal with not being able to, at moments, which I'm starting to get better with, knowing how to tell you how I feel as opposed to displaying it in actions. Because I know for me, with it being like us being married, I do better with displaying my love language through gifts than I do of just being able to sit down and tell you this is how I feel.
And so, but where does that come from though? Does that come from being so, and again, we're not even going into the trauma side of why people disconnect. We're not talking about that today, although that may be a future conversation. But you are so connected with technology, social media, music, and that digital space that when it comes time, I remember when we were dating and we were apart, like we were long distance, and understand I wasn't the only fish on the hook. So I know that, but I'm not saying it that way. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's honestly like humble, open, and transparent.
But what I do know is that your communication was all in song. Like everything was, you would send me a song and that song would tell me how you were feeling at the moment. If you were feeling randy, ha ha ha, you would send me love songs or songs that talked about sex. If you were feeling emotional or lovey-dovey, you would send me love songs. If you were feeling funny, and we would send songs back and forth, and those, we'd have literal conversations like that. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes hard to express your actual emotions in actual words because you've gotten so dependent on, and not just you, it's a whole generation of y'all.
A lot of people. Because you have to remember a lot of where the space that we were in, because we were really a part of that era of the paradigm shift. Because there were no more TV shows. 227, All in the Family, Different Strokes, Good Times, What's Happening, the Fat Albert TV show. A lot of your TV shows were shifting away from family-centered to now we're going to put down this group of people, but we're going to uplift this group of people, and not even making it a race issue by any stretch of the imagination. So for me as a kid, I always, with even watching, which I gotta watch it again, even watching Pharrell's movie Piece by Piece, I really in that moment was really taken back, and I realized like I'm not the only person out here that I don't suffer from what he suffers from, but to have a connection with something that's deeper than what you really know, it makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but it makes sense to me because I love music so much, because music speaks for people that might not know how to speak for themselves. Because whether you're listening to the lyrics or you're listening to the melodic waves or frequencies that are in that song, if you read the lyrics for what it states, whoever wrote it or whoever the writers were, you knew without a shadow of a doubt that when you hear it, there was no faking, there was no phony, there were no Weird Owls. when James Taylor got on stage and he would perform either Carolina on My Mind or Fire and Rain, you knew based on what he's telling you, I'm not faking, and there's no phoniness to what I'm giving you the most authentic version of who I am.
But when you go to that extreme, when you start talking about music as a replacement for emotions, because that's what we're talking. Hold on, before you fly in, let me land this plane. So when you talk about, you're talking about music as a replacement for actual emotions. So in other words, James Taylor felt those emotions. You relate to those emotions. So instead of expressing them out of your own mouth, you then take that song, and that song represents those emotions. Now, that's okay if you can translate that into your own emotions. But what's happening with a lot of people, like for example, I was listening to Charlie Kirk earlier today, and Charlie was talking about how gangster rap in the black community is perpetuating a stereotype in the black community. I agree with that, and I don't. The part about it that I don't agree with is the part that music originated originally because that was what was happening in the community. And so what was happening in the community was people were getting shot at, and they were getting beat up by cops, and they were getting things done to them, and they were getting all of this stuff.
Like police brutality and I'm trying to think of the word to use. Police brutality and mass incarceration of that.
So the music,
not race, but
no.
But police brutality and mass incarceration of melanated people was at an all-time high.
And so that music was coming out of the feelings, the emotions of the people that wrote it. Now, not so much. So when you talk about the beginnings of Ice-T, Ice Cube, the 70s, when 79, when Rapper's Delight came out, and
Sugar
Hill Gang, and all of those artists were giving you the beat of the culture and the streets at the time. But now the music has changed, and they are regurgitating what sells records.
Because you had hood poets. That's
not what we have now. There's very few. There's very few genuine hood poets. There's very few genuine, this is my story type people. So you got people like Kendrick Lamar, that's his story. That boy grew up in Compton. He's from the hood.
Because you got J. Cole too, even though he wasn't about that lifestyle.
His stories are based on what he saw in the community, not what he experienced. But at the same time, the vast other majority of this music is fake. Most of these people are talking about this hood life and this gangster life, and they shooting and killing folks and bagging women, and they're not doing none of it. Why? Because they're disconnected from their actual lifestyle and emotions. And so that's why I said Charlie was partially right and partially wrong. The origins of hip hop are not the same as what we have today. And so because our generation between the ages of 18 and 40, most of these people are very, very disconnected from their emotions and their feelings because their brains have been digitized by movies, television, phones, and social media. And I say all the way up to 40 because I know 37, 38, 39, 40-year-old people that are popping into OnlyFans, popping into Snapchat and Instagram, and they're living on likes instead of having real conversations and real actions with people.
Because most people nowadays don't really know how to, or as what David would say, most people nowadays don't even know how to structure a sentence properly.
But that's so scary though, man. That is the scariest. That's scary because what happens is when you AI, for all of its benefits,
there's cons.
And the cons greatly outweigh the benefits.
That's because, again,
and we don't see it now.
That's because you have to remember, before something goes full-fledged, it needs testers. It needs guinea pigs.
Yeah, but those of us that are screaming, hey, wait, this is detrimental. Hey, wait, this is damaging. hey, wait, we might need to slow this down. That we are being looked at as old-fashioned, as out of touch, as dinosaurs, because this stuff is pushing forward. You even when I first started trying to wean you off, literally, I'd be like, babe, can we go somewhere where we would literally go to the movies and pay money to sit in a movie, and you would doom scroll your phone. And so it's like...
And then I got to a point where I started to realize, I'm like, I need to cut this out, because if I don't, it's going to infringe on my marriage, and I don't want that.
But everybody doesn't reckon. I've seen married couples sit at dinner tables at restaurants, and both of them are on their phones. They're not talking to each other.
But that goes back
That's horrible.
But that goes back to what Apostle said. The reason why it's being done is because both parties aren't sick and tired. They don't view it as a bad thing.
Yeah, but everybody's not getting taught by Apostle Gregory and Junie Kelly.
But even outside of them, that's with anything in life. Until you are tired, genuinely, of something being an issue, you're not going to stop it, because you don't view it as a hindrance.
People are legitimately, like, I watched this thing on Instagram where these people, and I have to find it again, where these people they had these circles on their temples, and when they pushed the circle, the temple turned blue, their eyes turned blue, and they went back, and it was like they turned into zombies, and whatever they were watching took over, and they no longer moved around, functioned, or anything, and they were outside or sitting in restaurants.
What's the TV show with Anthony Mackie? Look up the new Candyman movie.
Oh, but before I do that, I will. But before I do that, you had used the word paradigm. And a paradigm is a typical example or pattern of something or model. So the paradigm shift is in essence saying that we went from this way of doing things, operating, functioning, this example, this model, to now this new example or model or way of doing things. So that paradigm shift is from one model, one life, to another. And so I wanted to explain that, because I don't know if, like,
even with that,
I'd rather explain it than to somebody to Google it. But go ahead.
If you look at it, I went to a college at one point in time, and one of the questions that I had asked was, like, when you talk about people, like when you talk about paradigms and systems and constructs, and you start talking about like street poets that we don't have anymore. When I was in college, I had asked an instructor, I was like, why aren't we allowed, or why isn't this institute allowed to listen to Gil Scott-Heron? And this is
Say what you're saying.
Nah, because I'm not.
Anyway, this is a predominantly black college in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's a historic HBCU, historically black college and university.
In North Carolina.
In North Carolina.
And I'm thinking to myself, it's not that institute isn't allowed to play the artist. It's the artwork it's the message that artist is telling everybody. They don't, and it's sad that it starts in our community, that we're one of the main ones to talk about why are we still suffering with the issues that we suffer, is because we allow certain entities and certain groups to come in and, tell me if I'm using the correct term, we allow certain groups to come in and ratify or come in and try to switch what's already being done.
Well, and that's not a wrong terminology to use, but what I would say was, you have to think, Gil Scott-Heron was the guy, and I don't know if any of y'all remember or you guys have heard samples that say the revolution will not be televised. But we have gone to the revolution, we have gone from the revolution will not be televised to the televisation of the revolution has destroyed the revolution. It was better when we didn't have the phones and the televised revolution, because, for example, let's go back. Let's look at it this way. The civil rights movement changed when they were able to show black people getting hosed down and attacked by dogs on television.
Not just only that, you also
No. When people could see it, the rest of the country found out, wow, this is what they're doing to those people.
But not only that, you also have to remember the role of the youth. Again, going back to when you look at, even with AI, everybody in this world cares more about kids than kids get more love and attention, whether it's good or bad, than adults do. And I'm not even saying it like it's a grown adult, a grown woman versus a grown man, but in no matter where you go.
But so, and you can go back to the integration of schools, but all of that was televised, Eli. When prejudice was just prejudice in the dark, nobody knew about it. You heard about it, but if you lived in California, even black people in Cali, prejudice wasn't really a thing. It was there, but it wasn't. But then when you talk about when Gil Scott-Heron said the revolution will not be televised, is because television was not showing the revolution. When they showed the Black Panther Party building getting burned to the ground, when they showed these people getting hosed down at a sit-in, when they showed Martin Luther King sitting on, that changed everything. It completely changed the game. It completely changed everything. Once the rest of the country that wasn't segregated started to see what was happening, then there became this public outcry. That's when the president was like, hey, send the National Guard down there because they can't do that. Before they put it on television, nobody knew what was going on.
So I'm gonna quote one of the parts of Gil Scott-Heron, and it says, "The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, or Serpio Agnew." So when you're looking at in real time, like the shift as far as
that was the shift
as lyrics, as lyricists. Like for me, I can say I'm very much of an old soul. Gil Scott-Heron, who's my favorite black author? What's his name?
I know who you're talking about.
James Baldwin.
Yeah.
Even though James Baldwin was gay, that's besides the point. But when you look at what is being said and what is going on, going back to frequencies, even within AI, there's AI programs, literally apps, that they study what music you listen to, what political, not just parties, but what political ideas and thoughts that you align yourself with just based on little quizzes. Like take the survey on YouTube, and they'll literally be like, you could be on Facebook and it'll say, are you suffering from these type of thoughts or this type of issue? Download this app. And it's literally an AI designed app called whatever Sleep or whatever Meditate or whatever, the app is not really. The app is designed to basically take you mentally away from what you're supposed to be doing.
But that goes back to the fact, like, for example, we could stop this broadcast, we could cut this off,
like,
and go on Google, go on YouTube right now and have a whole video in the commercials pop up about AI and AI generated stuff, because our television, our computer, this iPad, and all this crap is listening to these conversations right now.
Like, what did Kendrick say? What did he say on Gen X? What did he say? Turn this TV off? Really? And this is where my stance is. I love Kendrick Lamar because he's bringing the authenticity of not just hip hop, and not only just black excellence, but being able to take a subject and actually give you synonyms of what it actually is. It's not just this, oh, I'm walking down the street and I'm over here, I'm over there. Like, no.
Now we won't, that'll be a whole nother episode, but we're not going to venture into that, because I can talk about the originality of Kendrick Lamar over a whole bunch of other people, and his stuff is actually coming from him versus folks stealing music.
Well, no.
And that whole deal.
No, not even just the stealing music, but they said, even though, again, perception and again how we view things. I forgot who said it. ASAP Rocky once said the greatest form, emulation is the greatest form of flattery.
That didn't come from ASAP Rocky. He took that from a whole nother person. That is an old statement. He repeated it.
Yeah, but when you're looking at it, it's just like Apostle said in church. How is it that something that was not dead, but how did someone that died over 2,000 years ago, how does their walk, their power still reign now, today, and forevermore? Because it is what it is. You can't create something out of nothing.
The goal is right now, the goal is to make the truth into a lie. And they are perpetuating that every day. So the goal is to take the thing that was made in the image of God and make it over in the image of the machine. They literally, and I watched this entire documentary about AI, and they literally are taking, and they're saying, I don't know where they got these brains from. My personal opinion is they got this brain matter from aborted fetuses, but they grew a brain in a laboratory from some DNA, and then they took that brain and put it inside of a robot. And I will come back to y'all with the information on how they did that or how they're doing that. But they literally grew a brain inside in a laboratory and stuck it in a robot. So they're trying to take what God created in his image and remake it in the image of the machine. God bless Elon Musk, but Neuralink is literally a mouse inside your brain that is connected to your brain. They've got this other thing called OMI, O-M-I, and y'all can look this stuff up.
I got another one.
OMI is basically this thing that you put around your neck or on your temple, and it reads the mind of the person that's sitting across from you as long as they have one too. It connects electronically from one mind to another.
Neural connection.
It's not, but it's got a name. It's called Omni or Ami.
So like when we start talking about like going, so like we don't really have. We have artists that give you that format, but that's not what gets played, which goes back to the AI. It's like the control of the algorithm, the control of the frequency, living in a society to where literally I can hit Siri and Siri can tell me.
As soon as you say her name, she's like, who? Huh? What? Go ahead. No, Siri.
Like I'm gonna show you the craziness of convenience. Hey Siri, who was the first team to win the Super Bowl and what was the score?
Is
the sound on?
It's on, but she decides she didn't want to talk to you.
Hey Siri, which NFL team won the first Super Bowl and what was the final score?
She did not like you. Hey Siri. Hey Siri. She is not listening to you.
I got it for 1 second.
And
hey Siri, which NFL team won the first Super Bowl and what was the final score? It said the Green Bay Packers won the first Super Bowl.
What's the final score? But so that...
Hey Siri, which NFL team won the first Super Bowl and what was the final score?
But see, that's just like, for example, you can set your phone to work focus or do not disturb or all types of other stuff, and it will literally do what you tell it to do. And so we laugh and joke about it, and we talk about, and you're talking about songs and like, okay, poetry, Gil Scott-Heron, what's the other guy that you like? I think you read his poem just now. What's his name? I can't remember.
That was Gil Scott-Heron.
Oh, that was Gil Scott.
That was Billy Green's Dead.
Okay, but
that was off. Well, I don't know what project it was off of, but it was like.
But all of those things, we don't have original thinkers like that anymore. Everybody regurgitates the same talking points.
Because he was a bluesologist, which means he studied. Whatever it was. But again, though, going back to what you're saying is, we don't have. And I apologize if I cut you off.
No, you're fine.
it's not that we don't have good artists. It's that when you are an artist and that's the term that you give yourself, you have to really study what you are going to be talking about. You can't just come out of left field and somebody asks you. This is like one of my favorite comedians, James Gregory. He was watching Family Feud and he was mind blown because the announcer asked, the question was, name a city spelled with the letter K. And the kid says, I know. And the guy's like, what is it? He says, Connecticut.
Again.
And you really got.
But we also have a generation of people that think Sexy Red is a good artist. And they spend $30 on green lip gloss named Gonorrhea. Yeah, I hear you, but we don't have Gil Scott Herons anymore. For all 5 of the Sexy Reds and all the people that have no flow and they say dumb stuff, you got one Kendrick Lamar. You got one SZA. Out of all the artists, there's 100 artists and one SZA. There's 100 rappers and one Kendrick.
One Cole.
One Cole. One, what's that baby that's locked up right now?
Tory Lanez.
One Tory. But then you got all of these people that have been given all this press for being so artistic, and they're really not. They just look good in the machine. And so AI even and I don't remember what the name of the AI rap guy was. There was an AI.
That song called Florida Water?
Yeah. And I want to say, I think they did that. Yeah, FN Mika. FN Mika. And he was a fake. And he had like a whole album. Virtual rapper. And his voice came from a real person. His voice came from a real person. And that real person, who was the real voice behind... There's a real guy, voice of FM Mika, speaks out against Creator Factory New. So there's a real guy behind that AI rapper. They cloned this man's voice. You could literally go on, like there's these things like, okay, for example, one of my business partner, she listens to these sermons from Miles Monroe. Miles Monroe has been dead. Miles Monroe has been dead since 2014. But she subscribed to this thing that sends out sermons with Miles Monroe's voice on them. That ain't Miles Monroe. And I told her, I said, it's not Miles. And I sent her one of his actual sermons with him actually talking, and then one of these AI sermons. Now, mind you, they're good. They're amazing sermons. They're actually very uplifting and very, very good. But it's not him. I said, sweetheart, Miles has been dead since. She said, oh yeah, he has. But that's how good this stuff have gotten. They've got ones with Denzel's voice on it, where it'll be Denzel saying some inspirational stuff and it's not Denzel. And it's getting harder to tell the difference. And let's conclude this. I mean, we can get to the end point of this whole shenanigan, but the reality of it is, I feel that we are losing our humanity. We're losing our connection with one another, and we are sadly losing our connection, for those of us that is allowing it. We're losing our connection with our Creator God. And that is that is very scary and highly detrimental, because we begin to numb as a society, and all of these isms and schisms become the norm of the day. So I don't know what your final thought is, but that was my final thought.
I'm where you are.
But you got to give a final thought. Final thought.
I co-sign my wife. That's my final thought.
You can't co-sign your wife. You got to give an actual final thought. Final thought. Smart guy. Final thought. thoughts of finality.
Thoughts of finality.
And don't play nothing and don't quote. Nope. And nope. Put the phone down. Eli's final thought, not the phone's final thought. Eli's final thought.
I was gonna put on something slow and a little beautiful. Let everybody know.
No. Well, what is your your actual final thought, sir?
I mean, my final thoughts are you just gotta be true to yourself and you just gotta like stay connected. That's really what it is. Because if not, you'll get lost in the sauce, and then before you know it, there's so like you'll. And I'll definitely like dim a little bit of light on one of my shortcomings that I've dealt with for a long time was I stopped trying to even make music because I would get mad that my sound wouldn't sound like Ryan Leslie. Like I never saw the back end. I only saw the finished product. So it's like if I can't sound like that, I'm not gonna do it. So that again, especially it's easy to be manipulated when you already have an identity issue because they're able to figure out ways to create something that appears to be real but is not. It's a carbon copy of something else. Like if you look at Kendrick, and not saying like cloning, but if you're looking at it through the lens of to match, first you have Pac and Biggie, now you have Kendrick and Cole.
All right.
Like you got the West Coast for Pac, and like really, I really do believe. Well, no.
Don't go down that rabbit hole.
Well, you got Pac, you got Nipsey, and then you got Kendrick. If you really look at, even though in age, if you look,
that's a whole nother show. Number one,
you're right,
and number two, the three people that you just put in a lineup scares me because they already got rid of Tory Lanez. That boy's locked up, so that makes me scared because Kendrick is the Pac of today. He is the Nipsey of today. So when you look at that, I don't never want nothing to happen to that baby, him come up missing. So that's a bad comparison. Like I don't even want to put him in that category. But all right, y'all, that's ET Speaks.
For sure.
We out. Love, peace, and hair grease.
Oh, before we end, I want to give a shout out to the owner of D.O.D Radio, Miss Renee Ambush, and another shout out I want to give is to one of the producers that we have, Tiago. He's fired too. In about, I'll probably say the next 3 to 5 years, be on the lookout for his new line of flip flops that's gonna be dropping.
You are horrible.
Definitely check that out.
You are horrible. All right, we might cut that out because you horrible. Bye.
You have been listening to Being Unboxed on the D.O.D Radio Network. Best self, best life, best radio.